After years and years of waiting, the next big Nintendo console is finally out. And it's the most miserable thing to talk about online right now. The pricing is the main thing that people are mad about, and yeah, fair enough, I guess. I honestly think the price of the console itself is fairly reasonable and in line with what I would expect from a big handheld console releasing right now, especially when you compare it to some of the competitors. The games are what most people are mad about, with Mario Kart World costing a big old 80 doubloons if you don't get the bundle. I was able to pick up the bundle as well as a copy of Cyberpunk and just wanted to give my thoughts on the console so far and the games I've been playing on it so you can decide if it's worth your money. Like I said just a second ago though, talking about this console has been very miserable pretty much since that Switch 2 Direct back in April, and while I totally understand people being mad about the game prices and stuff like that, the point we are at right now is people basically just nitpicking for random things to be mad about, and also people who acted all high and mighty about not getting one just for them to buy it day one. If you don't want the console or think it's way too expensive, then I can shorten this video for you real quick right now. Don't buy it. There are plenty of other things for you to spend your money on, or you could just spend your money on nothing. Saving is a good habit. But if you're on the fence or just want to hear someone else's thoughts, then hi, welcome. We're going to talk about the Switch 2. So first up, let's talk about the actual hardware itself. Pretty much it's exactly what I expected it to be. It's the Switch, but slightly larger and far more powerful, and hey, that's all I wanted. Obviously, we haven't moved up to like PS5 levels, but honestly, I didn't really need it to do that. I just wanted something that could run some more modern games and also allowed Nintendo to have some more breathing room, because the stuff they pumped out on that first Switch was very impressive, so giving them some extra horsepower to make cooler and better looking games is the main thing I need from this console. The main device the Switch 2 is getting compared to is the Steam Deck, since they do seem to be very similar in specs and stuff. I'm not really the best person to ask about stuff like this, and there are so many other channels that actually give good in-depth analysis of the hardware, so if you're wanting that, this may not be the best review to watch, but from what I can tell, while the Steam Deck, like the Switch 2, is a very powerful little machine, the Switch 2 has the benefit of the fact that all games being ported to it have to be specifically optimized to run on the console. This results in games like Cyberpunk, which we'll talk about more in a second, seeming to look better on Switch 2. The main thing I really like about the Switch 2 over the Steam Deck is that it has a nice 1080p screen, making games look great when playing them in handheld mode. The Steam Deck screen is really good, especially if you have an OLED model, but it's in 1280 by 800, which is both lower resolution as well as not being 16 by 9. That extra space can look good when the game supports it, but otherwise you just get these black bars at the top and bottom, which I don't really like that much. It does suck a little that they didn't do OLED for Switch 2, and I'm sure they'll conveniently release another model in a few years that does have it, but honestly it really isn't bothering me too much right now. The Joy-Cons are something that really don't look like they've gotten that much of an upgrade, but just the little things like them being a bit bigger makes me like them so much more than the originals. I also like to play with magnets. I'm going to break this thing trying to play with magnets. The main concern is Joy-Con drift happening again, which I really hope it doesn't, because that genuinely made me use my Switch in portable mode way less than I would have otherwise, and I'm also loving using the Switch 2 in portable mode, so that would be a really big bummer for me if that became a problem. Overall, I don't really have a ton of big praise to give the console, since it's exactly what I expected it to be, and it's really not breaking new ground like the first Switch did, but also I don't have much bad to say about it, since I've really enjoyed using it so far. So before we get into the main game I want to talk about in this video, I thought first I would talk a little about Cyberpunk, mostly since it's the only other game I got with my console. The main reason I really wanted to get this game on Switch 2 is because I felt like it would probably be the best game out right now to gauge what exactly this system can handle. And let me tell you, the Switch 2 did way better with this game than I thought it would. It's obviously not perfect, and I ran into some minor problems here and there, but being able to play a game this big and this detailed on a portable system, and it runs decently, is very impressive. I played the game pretty much exclusively on quality mode, which had the game run at 1080p at 30 FPS, which usually I go for performance mode in games, but it made the game look significantly worse and only upped the frame rate by like 10. This is actually my first experience playing Cyberpunk at all, and I'm genuinely having a pretty good time with it, and being able to play it portably I think is a big contributor to that. Big open world games like this I think lend themselves really well to either really long play sessions or really short ones where you just get a few quests done, and the portable mode is great for the shorter sessions. This version of the game also features mouse and gyro controls, which makes aiming so much better when playing on a controller. If you're big into having games run at the best resolution and the best frame rates, then I probably don't need to tell you that you wouldn't like this version of the game, but if you want a big open world RPG to play on your new portable system, I do genuinely think this is one of the best games available for the Switch 2 at the moment. Okay, now it's time to get into the real thing I wanted to talk about in this video, Mario Kart World. The main selling point of this game is that instead of all of the tracks just existing separately from each other, they are instead all connected via one giant open world which allows you to seamlessly drive from track to track. I think this is a really cool idea for a game like this. Even though open world racing games do exist, most of the time the tracks in those games aren't nearly as elaborate or crazy as some Mario Kart tracks can get. I think the best part about this is that it never felt to me like they compromised the track design to try and fit them within an open world. It was instead that world that was shaped around the tracks, which helped make the races just as much or more fun than they are in previous entries. I think the biggest problem people have with the open world is that there isn't a ton of stuff to do in it. There are a few types of collectibles, some pretty fun P-switch challenges you can find around the map, and that's about it. I found the P-switch challenges and looking for the different costumes for all of the different characters to be pretty fun, but it's very clearly not the main focus of the game. I think people heard the word open world and immediately thought that this game was going to be Mario Kart Breath of the Engine, when in reality that's just not what this game is trying to be at all. The main focus here, just like in all of the other Mario Karts, is the races themselves. Mario Kart World is not trying to be your traditional 200-hour open world game, but rather using that large connected world to try and reinvent what you can do within a Mario Kart race. I do think a single-player campaign would work really well in a big map like this to give a bit more incentive to explore, but also, this game is one of those strange cases where I could just drive around for hours with no real goal, because even though there isn't a ton of things filling this world, the world itself is just so well designed and pretty beautiful at times to where I just don't need any more motivation. I totally get that won't be the case for everyone, but even if you don't like this part of the game or feel it's too empty, there is still a whole Mario Kart game you can play. There's a reason that free roam is just a little blurb down at the bottom corner of the screen, while everything else is on these big menu buttons. But before we get into said other game modes, I wanted to talk about some of the changes made to the movement of the game compared to previous entries. In past games, you have been able to drive, drift, and brake. Nothing fancy, but it's made to feel good to control. Then, in Mario Kart 7, you got the underwater sections, which really didn't change the gameplay all that much, and the gliders, which allowed you to glide through the air at certain points. Mario Kart 8 brought a lot of those ideas back, but then also added the anti-gravity sections, which, like the underwater areas, didn't change the gameplay all that much, but it did allow for much crazier track design. Mario Kart World, in many ways, brings us a step back a little by getting rid of the anti-gravity and having the water sections be above water rather than under. Gliding is still here though, and feels pretty good. I do have to say I much prefer the little wings coming out of the karts over the gliders, which just never really looked all that good to me. Even though I loved how crazy Mario Kart 8 got with its gimmicks at times, I do think that drawing things back a little was necessary for the series to move forward, since a lot of those tricks just lost their appeal to me after a while. But it's not like they just got rid of those things and replaced them with nothing. Instead, we got some of my favorite additions to Mario Kart in a long time with the rail grinding and wall jumping, which just gave you way more ways to interact with the tracks, while also feeling super satisfying to pull off. It's one of those additions that just fits right in with the rest of the game, and even though it's such a huge change from previous entries, it just feels right and you don't really think about it that much. But finally, on to the different game modes, we first have Grand Prix, which is the typical single-player offering in every Mario Kart game. Usually you just pick a cup, play through 4 different tracks, then you're done. But this time, a majority of the Grand Prix is spent on the road between the tracks themselves, and then once you finally get to the track, you only get 1 lap. I'm a little mixed on this decision, since while I really like the idea of getting to actually drive from race to race, I just wish we got more time on the tracks themselves. I honestly wouldn't have minded if they just decided to make the Grand Prix longer, with each race having the drive to it plus the traditional 3 laps, but it's also not like the way it is now ruined the game for me. I still had a really fun time going through the Grand Prix mode, and the big Rainbow Road finale was enough to make a grown man-child cry. But if you really aren't a big fan of how Grand Prix is set up, then you can always just play Versus mode, which allows you to do a traditional 3-lap race on all of the tracks, which is definitely an appreciated option and probably the biggest draw to this mode. The main problem I have is that when playing online, there is no option to only do 3-lap races, and instead it's just sort of left up to chance on what kind of race you get. The longer the game has been out, more people have figured out how the online course selection works, and it's definitely gotten easier to get into a normal race, but I do just wish you could connect to a lobby that only did the normal races. Speaking of the online, man, those races can get brutal. I swear I've gotten hit by like 12 items in a row multiple times. There is one new game mode with Knockout Tour, which is the mode that uses the open world the best out of all of the game modes. You basically just have one big road trip from one part of the map to the other, and the longer the race goes on, the higher place you have to be to stay in the race. I originally played this in single player and didn't really care for it all that much, but man, let me tell you, this is a game mode crafted specifically for online. I talked a second ago about how crazy the online is in this game, and that insanity fits this game mode super well. Knockout Tour has a great balance between skill and sheer luck, which is really what Mario Kart has always been about, so it fits in super well. And then there's Battle Mode. I've never really cared for Battle Mode all that much, so I've only played like one round and it was fine, I guess. Overall, I found this game to be really fun and everything I was hoping it would be, but I can definitely understand why some would be disappointed with the open world or frustrated by some of the changes they made to the Grand Prix or the online races. But for me personally, I think this is one of the best Mario Kart games. So those were some of my thoughts on the Switch 2 and a few of the games on it. And while I think it's a little too early to make a judgment on the system/generation as a whole, I think as far as system launches go, aside from some pricing stuff, it's one of the best I've seen. You've got a big launch game that would appeal to most people getting a Nintendo system, and a ton of third-party games, which while most of them aren't necessarily new, they do give you plenty to do on the system, since chances are you haven't played all of these games. And for me, since I haven't played Cyberpunk before, this gave me a huge game to play at launch that I've already put over 50 hours into. But onto whether I would recommend buying the system at this point or not, as usual, that kinda depends on the person I'm talking to. No matter what though, if you do plan on getting a Switch 2, I definitely recommend getting the Mario Kart bundle, as that will save you a significant amount on the game, and as much as I love Mario Kart World, 80 big ones is still a lot to ask for it. This is still very early on in the system's life. You know, remember, it's only been out a few weeks by the time this video releases, so buying it right now is more of an investment, since you're just sort of trusting that there will be more games you want to play on it later. Obviously, some people will want to wait until there are more games out, or there's a good Black Friday bundle of the system or something, which is definitely the smarter move, and if you're not in a hurry to get the system, then that's probably what I would recommend. If you're a huge fan of Nintendo like I am, I probably don't really need to tell you anything. You probably already have one or are close to getting one. But if you're waiting for some sort of price cut in a similar vein to what the 3DS got, in my full honest opinion, I don't see that ever happening, so either don't get it or just be ready to pay. This is a high quality system with high quality games, so if that's all you're looking for, then I think this is a good option. But if you want games running the best they possibly can, and don't really care at all about portable systems or Nintendo games, then yeah, obviously this just isn't the system for you. But for me, I have been having a great time with it, and I haven't even really gotten into things like the free updates and Switch 2 editions of older Switch games, which gives you even more to do on the system. I'm nowhere near done talking about the Switch 2 once this video is over though, since chances are I'll be talking about a lot of Switch 2 games in the future as they come out. But for now, I hope this video does well, because for reasons I won't say right now, I'm down almost $600.